pretty
I feel
ritzy
like
back in the
I
day.
feel like she would have driven something slight bit nicer.
It's European but sensible.
Yeah,
A little more rakish than a Volvo.
it was really cool in Greenville because it was a kind of a car that no one else had. It stuck out
You know,
nicely.
there's some benefits and not so great benefits. Because I remember my dad had that issue with his Volkswagen, which is kind of cool, but like, oh, I need to go get parts. Not so cool.
Yeah, no, parts were a problem for the Saab. Volkswagen not so bad. You could find Volkswagen parts around because we
Well,
were
you know,
close
the
enough
thing
to
is,
St. Louis. But
everyone
Saab, you had to go all
stocked
the way into St. Louis for it.
everyone stocked Volkswagen Beetle parts and minibus parts, but they didn't have the Type 3, which is just like a stretched out bug if you look at it. And so the engine
But
was
we have
different, the
all
transmission, and
kinds
some
of
other stuff.
Swedish topics kicking around here.
Swedish, Swedish pancakes. Swedish pancakes.
You're just talking about food because you're hungry.
Yeah, I had a meatball sandwich. In so much that I took a leftover meatball, cut it in two, and stuck
Put
it
it
in
into
toasted
bread.
bread with cheese.
We do not, in our house right now, have any bread or cheese.
Well, is that conscious like a dietary thing?
The bread thing is more of just a taste thing. Um, Eileen
You
doesn't
don't
really
like
like
bread?
sandwiches. She doesn't really like bread.
What?
Oh,
Well, um, I
but
have
you
a
have a rice
problem with
cooker,
that.
Yeah, we do. We
right?
definitely have a rice
Okay,
cooker. We actually just got a new one for Christmas. It
because my
plays
eyebrow would be
"Twinkle Twinkle
raised.
Little Star" when you start cooking the rice.
Oh, that's kind of cool. Mine just kind of percolates and then makes rice.
Sorry, I can't let that go. As a French person who has issues with
But
gluten,
Flour.
"Twinkle Twinkle Little Star" Japanese rice cooker distraction.
well, I guess that does help a little bit. Is it actually Japanese? Is it a
Yeah,
Japanese
yeah,
brand?
we got it
Okay.
at Mitsuya Marketplace. It's an
Okay,
import.
fine. All right. Well, you do have the
Whew.
big advantage of having a 110 volt
Right?
electricity, so you can just import them
Yep.
easily. For us, it's a lot more difficult.
Just plug it in. Yeah, Eileen doesn't really like bread, and we both try to cut down carbs as well. So no bread in the house. The cheese thing
See,
is
isn't
more
rice carbs?
me trying to just
Yes.
cut down on cheese because it doesn't agree with me as well as it used to. And so I save it for when I'm getting really good cheese.
Hmm.
It's not that
Okay,
I don't
that's
eat cheese at all.
and when you eat good cheese, do you have good bread with it?
Not always.
What do you eat it? What do you eat it with?
Just eat it on its own.
Okay, I guess so, but
A
I'm
lot of
sure you
times
can
I
get
have
in
crackers. You know,
LA.
we have crackers, so I will do
Do
cheesy
not finish that sentence, Merritt.
cheese and crackers.
Do not. When you're talking about good cheese, I'm sure you
Mhm.
can find a good baguette in LA somewhere.
Oh,
There has
sure.
to be
Yeah,
some.
yeah. It's not easy, but you can, it can be done.
Wait,
Apparently, there's an app to help you find good baguettes around the world.
The
Just saw
problem with
that
the
today.
baguettes that I've ever found in the United States is they're rock hard. I don't know what
yeah,
they don't do, but when I've gone to not just in places in Europe, but even in Japan, you buy a baguette and
Yeah,
it's soft inside. It's hard on the outside and soft on the
obviously.
inside, the way a baguette's supposed to be. First time I ever ate a baguette like that, I was like, oh, I get why people like baguettes because they aren't supposed to grate your mouth into shreds. They're just
crush your
supposed to be
teeth.
crunchy on the outside and warm and lovely on the inside.
The only time I've ever found stuff like that is at Safeway when they pull them right out of the oven
Yeah, you got to get them fresh. I think that's what happens. They just leave them out
and
forever
they
and
get
they don't.
stale,
Yeah.
and then you could play sword and sorcery with it later.
But
Oh,
wait, there's an app. I just saw that today. Maybe it was a joke.
Yeah, I want to know if that app's not a joke. I would like that. Because one of my favorite sandwiches when I was living in when I was working in Petaluma, for lunch, right before I'd go do Tech News Today, I would stop at this little place, and they served sandwiches that were just uh, they changed the hams. Often it was prosciutto with a little bit of Gruyere and on a baguette. like just a little sandwich. It was so good. And
Well,
they
good
had
baguette is really good, but
Yeah.
I can't find that app. It was in
need
my
control when you get a chance.
somewhere.
Yes, thank you. Control for Roger. There you go. Beatmaster wants to know if I've ever tried to make my own bread. I have not. My sister and mother and grandma all did when I was growing up, but I never. I might have done it once growing up, but never
I've only
again.
done it in school, where they trust you with an oven. Did you have that in junior high? I remember we went in a class.
I never took it. There was home economics, yeah.
Well, my
In high
home
school,
ec
so.
class was also my homeroom, and so we would have like the 8 ovens in
Nice.
there.
Nice and toasty warm.
Yeah, that's what we did. We didn't have heat, and so she would just crank up the ovens and open the doors.
We have a Danish bakery near us, and they do amazing like pastries.
Danishes? Like Danishes?
Well, they're all by definition Danishes because it's a Danish bakery.
Barbie ovens. What's a Barbie oven? Strike it, Rich. Is that like the oven with the 100-watt light bulb in it? What was that one? Easy bake oven?
The Danish bakery is called Copenhagen.
Oh, wait a minute. Isn't that a furniture store?
Not terribly inventive.
They don't call them Danishes in Denmark.
We'll call it Hamlet.
They call them things. It's like in Brazil nut. In Brazil, they call it a nut.
Right. Or what Patrick just calls toast. French toast.
What?
French toast.
Yeah.
Oh.
You still looking for that app?
Yeah. It's very annoying.
We got to start doing the show here in a second.
Why?
Because that's why we showed up.
Yeah,
Hiding.
There's the baguette app.
Could be your pick of the day.
Still looking.
You got 20 seconds.
But I can't remember. Really?
No, it's 1:29. We should start.
Well, yeah, okay, let's start. It's a tragedy.
When the bathroom's locked and you got to go. It's tragedy.
Tragedy. La, 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 la. Okay, we can start.
All right, here we go. Daily Tech News Show is powered by you. To find out more, head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support. Oh no, that didn't work. I'm going to do that again. Why didn't that work? Oh, it worked that time. All right, here we go again. Take 2. Daily Tech News Show is powered by you. To find out more, head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support. This is the Daily Tech News for Tuesday, February 14th, Valentine's Day, 2017. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me today, your very own Tech Valentine, Monsieur Patrick Beja.
Hey, how's it going, Tom?
I am well. Did you have a good Valentine's Day?
It was, well, I mean, every day is Valentine's Day for
I
my
like to
wife
believe
and
that
I.
too. Especially because my wife, it's a small digression, my wife rails against Valentine's Day. She refuses to let me do anything. She does not wear red. She's like, it's a Hallmark holiday. And so I'm like, just make sure people know that that's your idea so that I don't just look like a jerk.
You know, I don't really get that. I have to be honest. I think it's okay to have a fun day for Valentine's Day as well as every other day. The problem is if you're being romantic only on Valentine's Day.
Sure. And Eileen's problem with it is, oh, the flowers are more expensive. The restaurants are more expensive. Screw that. I'm not going to pay extra because of your fake day.
Well, you're already married. You've been married for a while. It's fine.
All right. We've got some technology news to talk about with you. We're going to talk about Legend of Zelda's downloadable content and get into a discussion of, is that a cool extra thing they're giving you? Or is that a thing where you're like, why are you charging me extra for the game? Just give me the game. That is coming up. But first, the top stories. Oh boy. Disney's Maker Studios has dropped YouTube celebrity Felix Kjellberg. How do you say it again?
Well, so the way I would say it, I'm not an expert at Swedish yet, but Kjellberg, I think, would be the pronunciation. I'm sure many Swedish listeners will correct me.
I'm going to call him PewDiePie because that's how everybody else knows him. He has been dropped by Maker Studios and YouTube for having videos with anti-Semitic content. The Wall Street Journal did a study and they found 9 videos posted since August with either some kind of anti-Semitic message inside or Nazi imagery. Now, Kjellberg says the content was meant to be joking. He did a thing like, using a crowdfunding app to pay someone to hold a sign with an anti-Jewish message on it because he wanted to show that people will do anything for money. He said, quote, "I was not supporting any kind of hateful attitudes," and admitted the videos in question were ultimately offensive. YouTube has canceled the 2nd season of the YouTube Red series Scare PewDiePie and removed him from the Google Preferred Advertising program. Now, he can still run ads on his channel, but he will get rev share at a lower rate now than he would get in that preferred program.
Which he'll be fine. I think, it's not, I'm sure he's not happy about it, but the reactions to this are basically in 2 camps. It's either, well, he was just joking, and the other camp is like, well, you shouldn't joke with that. I tend to think that the trivialization of hate speech is a problem, and there's none more important than what happened in World War II. And I'm wondering if, as younger generations get further and further from the actual events and from people who were involved in those events and affected by those events, it's kind of unfortunately unavoidable that this is going to fade in everyone's memory. But as long as we can keep it, the importance of it alive, I think it's important to do so. And so I fall in the camp of, maybe not, don't joke about this so casually.
Casually. PewDiePie likes to troll, right? With a wink in his eye. He did the whole thing where he was going to delete his channel, and he deleted a channel he owned that had, very few subscribers. Ha ha ha. So he likes to tweak. This is, to me, an example of someone fairly disconnected from how a large segment of the world views particular thing. And I don't really get the sense that he was doing it out of some secret nefarious purposes. Somebody in the chat room said, look, this is a kind of joke that, lots of different online groups have been doing. It's just that because PewDiePie has millions and millions of subscribers, it gets a bigger light shined upon it. And I think that's what he's out of touch with, is just how effective his messages are. Somebody with 1,000 subscribers doing this as a joke might just be considered in poor taste. Someone of PewDiePie's popularity is considered more offensive. So like you, Patrick, it makes me wonder if, as time is going by, the memory of World War II, which you and I don't have, we didn't live through it, but we were born very close to it, and feel it more. I think it's starting to fade as with younger people, and just the way the Civil War here in the U.S. faded and the Napoleonic Wars faded, and we don't feel those as directly as people who were born closer to them.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, the big question is if it's okay to not jump on some other people, should we jump on PewDiePie? I think the visibility has. And I don't think it was nefarious either. And the answer was appropriate. It will impact him in a way that is not, it's not going to destroy his business. And it's a good message to send in this case. So I think ultimately everything worked the way it should work in this instance.
And then the question is, will he change his ways and say, oh, you know what? Yeah, that was wrong, which he said. He's like, he understands it was ultimately offensive. Or will he continue to do this independently? I'll be curious to.
Yeah, I think if he continues to do these kinds of things, I think I would be a little bit less inclined to judge him, not harshly. All right. Let's move on. Dubai's Roads and Transportation Authority Chairman and Executive Director, Mattar Al-Tayer. I'm not sure my pronunciation is going to be great. Mattar Al-Tayer. I'm trying, announced that starting this July, China's EHang will use its 184 quadcopters to carry single passengers around the city. The EHang 184 can go 30 miles on a charge and carry a person weighing up to 220 pounds, along with one small suitcase. Quadcopters are monitored from a command center, and passengers choose from a list of predetermined locations.
Now, remember, EHang got permission to test these in Nevada in 2016. They showed them off at CES this year. And so at CES, my reaction, and I think others' reaction was, oh, this is really interesting. It'll be a long time before we see these used in practice. And how practical will they really be? However, leave it to Dubai to say, we're going to try them now. We're going to make them practical right now. There's some security experts that are quoted in various articles I've seen, or rather aviation experts saying, you won't find me getting in one of these until it's had hundreds of thousands of hours of flight time to prove its safety. But, you know, there's time to get a lot of those tests in. This is very much a stunt, right? It's not really going to solve the transportation issues of Dubai, but it's also real. Like, they really will be putting people in these things.
Yeah, I don't know how much of a stunt it is. It is somewhat of a stunt, but it also can help. I don't know the exact situation of Dubai, but my understanding is that many of those huge cities in the Middle East have serious transportation infrastructure issues. So I'm thinking that it might be an actual trial run for something that could actually help the traffic situation.
I mean, how many can they carry? That's my reason for saying I don't think this solves the problem. This is sort of this is not really going to up the capacity, right?
Well, I don't know. Let's say they have 100 or 200 of those flying around at any given time, all day, every day. That makes up for a number of people being transported in the city. That removes cars and taxis from the city. I mean, I don't know. We would need to know more about this. I guess the more interesting thing is what you pointed out initially, which was this is being used already, or attempted at being used already. I also remember the news about Boeing saying that they were going to start using basically flying cars is the way they phrased it. It was last week or the week before. And this is probably what they were thinking about when they were saying flying cars. So
well, they were talking about vertical takeoff and landing vehicles recently. So, that's different than
which those are.
Yeah.
Those are vertical takeoff and landing vehicles, right? Technically, they fit
I don't usually, people don't use VTOL to refer to this kind of thing, but at the same time, there aren't a lot of these kinds of things out there. But it's different than a helicopter, yeah. I don't know. Here's the question before we move on. Would you take a ride? If you find yourself in Dubai after July, would you take a ride in one of the things? Would you trust yourself to it and your small suitcase?
For people who don't have the link or the image of what that is, it is not inspiring a lot of confidence. It seems very flimsy. It's tiny. It's basically a giant quadcopter drone, as we all know them, with a central area which has a big bulge and closes down as a cabin to put one person in them. And yeah, I would be part of the people who would wait for many, many hundreds of hours of flight testing before I would get into one.
I want to say, let's put it this way. I want to be the kind of person who'd be like, sure, I'll give it a whirl. It's probably safe. That said, I don't really like helicopters.
No, but
and you're going to be in this thing alone. There's no pilot, nothing. I probably would end up chickening out.
This is not like, oh, let's get on a bike and see what happens. This is not a joke. You're flying pretty high.
Yeah.
If something goes wrong, you're not going to get out of it. So, yeah.
Give me a parachute, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know
Amazon released a business conferencing platform called Chime, with voice calling, video messaging, and of course, virtual meetings. The free tier allows you to attend meetings, so you can be invited, by anybody who can run them. You can also use it to make one-on-one voice or video calls. Can't do conference calls, though. The paid option gives you more options, $2.50 per user per month. That gives you some user management options. And then the $15 per user per month option adds the ability to host meetings with screen sharing and video for up to 100 users. Chime's available on Windows, Mac OS, iOS, and Android, as well as through partnerships with Level 3 Communications and Vonage. So if you're a Vonage user, you could bolt this on to your existing enterprise plan. It's an enterprise thing, but as Google unveiled a new cloud product today, which is much more esoteric and really only going to be appealing to SQL developers, it's moving into Amazon's territory. Amazon, of course, today now moving into Microsoft and somewhat Google's territory with video conferencing.
Right. This is not exactly a Skype or Hangout replacement. This is really, I think, going after the video conferencing systems, which cost a lot of money to companies. And when you see the price tag of, $15 a month per user, this is not someone who uses Skype basically for free is not going to be looking at spending that much money. It's for intercontinental or cross-country conference systems that cost a lot of money. That being said, all of those, there is a lot of buzz around the communication and live communication space. And at some point, Skype has not evolved for a very long time. And quite frankly, even Hangouts is getting a little bit stale. And given the popularity of Slack and other tools like these and this one, I think at some point something's going to break and someone else is going to become more dominant than what we already know, unless, Microsoft has plans for their platform for Skype.
They have Skype for Business, which used to be Link.
It's a little bit of a different
offering.
thing.
And put it this way, sure, this is not new. Amazon's not breaking new ground here, but anybody who's ever used any video conferencing software, whether it was at home on Skype, whether it was at your company, it doesn't work the way it's supposed to. Every meeting begins with several minutes of, oh, are you there? Hold on, wait, let me figure. Oh, I think I figured it out. And if Amazon can come in and say, hey, Chime, we figured it all out. All you got to do is pay us $15 per user per month and it all just works. I'm not saying that's what they're doing, but if they could, it would make it worth the effort and expense to enter this market, because it has there is not one video conferencing solution out there that everybody goes, oh, that's the good one, right? There are lots of them that people say, well, Zoom's interesting. Well, Skype's gotten better, but none of them have locked it up.
And the most interesting thing in this whole thing, actually, I think, is the entrance of Amazon in it's a business product, but it's not an IT product. It's like a professional business product that I don't think they've had any before. It's
not in this sense, right? I mean, this is
they have
this is
AWS, of course, which is
This is an interesting step of saying we've been the IT provider for as a cloud provider for your company, but now we're going to run a product on top of that.
Yeah, for users.
Besides our entire retail system.
Yeah, interesting. At Code Media Conference Monday, Apple's Eddie Q and Ben Silverman talked about the upcoming Apple original show, Planet of the Apps. will.i.am created the show and appears as an advisor, along with Gary Vaynerchuk, Gwyneth Paltrow, and Jessica Alba. Developers appear on the show to pitch app ideas. Each advisor, picks one developer to work with and pitch to venture capitalists. The winner of the series gets $10 million in funding and prominent App Store placement. The show will premiere this spring on Apple Music. Q also said Apple is, quote, working on new features for podcasts, stay tuned, period. End quote.
I don't know whether to be excited about that last or frightened as a podcaster. There's lots of rumors flying about, they would allow for subscriptions in podcasting or better analytics or all of that. And I should welcome all of that.
That part is very inside baseball for us podcasters, but
Sure.
there is definitely, the people at iTunes have been gathering feedback from podcasters for a long time. My first meeting with them was, I think, like 5 years ago or something like that. And already at that point, we were like, well, maybe you could give us access to everyone's credit cards by just allowing them to pay us something.
Yeah.
That was before Patreon was a thing. But I think they feel there is something on podcasting. They've always felt it, but they're not sure how it can benefit them. And maybe they figured something out. Maybe it's just an announcement. It's not an innocent phrase thrown out for no reason. I think they actually have something planned, but it could very well be a less exciting thing than we think, because I mean, even if it's the money thing, they're going to take a cut. Is it going to be more than Patreon's 5%? Or anyway, inside baseball, as I said. But
but everyone, for the most part, listening to this podcast enjoys podcasts, right? Even if you're enjoying it on YouTube. So this might be an improved way to get podcasts, which I think would be very welcome, especially if those people who've been using the podcasting app have been wanting lots of different features that might come along with it too. But let's get back to Planet of the Apps.
So actually, a bridge to Planet of the Apps, I think they have a conundrum somewhere, which is they don't have content. And that has always been something that others have had in droves, namely their main competitor to the iTunes Store, YouTube. And they didn't quite know how to approach the issue of content. I think for a long time they've figured we'll just be distributing the content and we don't have to get involved anything beyond that. Now, clearly that philosophy is changing with things like Planet of the Apps or Carpool Karaoke, and they're producing shows. It's possible that this goes along another shift of strategy with podcasts where they want to get involved a little bit more in the monetization, or maybe another aspect of it, but being involved more.
Well, they do sell shows. So if they want to sell Planet of the Apps individual episodes to people who don't subscribe to Apple Music, they can just put it in the iTunes Store, right?
Right.
It's not. It is interesting though, because it is a full content play of we're going to do something for those podcasters. I'm not saying what yet. We already have a pretty robust store, and we're making original content, but we're going to put that on Apple Music. Now, granted, Carpool Karaoke, all about music, makes perfect sense. Planet of the Apps, on the other hand, not about music. Granted, some of the apps might be about music, and certainly will.i.am being involved adds a musician to the roster, but this is a developer show. This is the voice for app developers.
Which is, just to finish up on the podcast, maybe they'll include some in Apple Music if you put them exclusively and pay you for listens, which I don't know would work.
Wait, in podcasting? Yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But yeah, Planet of the Apps, honestly, I think that both this and Carpool Karaoke are trial runs. They are relatively easy to put together shows. Reality TV is always easier to and less expensive to put together than scripted TV. And I look at this in the same way I did as Miitomo for Nintendo, which was the first app that they put out. It was to test how things were going, making sure they had their infrastructure ready and ready for something more in the long run. I can't imagine that Apple is getting into content creation for two basically reality TV shows that, honestly, do you think they have a wide appeal? I don't see that. They might. I mean,
the Carpool Karaoke has an appeal to music lovers. It is one of the most popular segments on the Late Late Show with James Corden. That one makes sense to me. The Planet of the Apps feels like them saying, "Hey, we've got a bunch of app developers in the audience. Let's play to them." I don't know if they can make it work for people who don't care about app development. Maybe they can. I mean, it's Shark Tank too. It's Shark Tank.
Basically, that's what it is. Yeah, it's
basically taking the pitch part of Shark Tank and then putting on the coaching part of the voice for the apps, and then hoping to come up with a brilliant app at the end. So who knows? Maybe they can make it work.
But do you think it's the first act of? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think it is a trial run to further original content that they can either say, hey, we tried these things and that's cool and we'll keep making some content. or it's them saying that forget it. That's the end of the road for us on original content. It could also lead to them creating a whole Apple television channel. Who knows?
Yeah, that's possible. Someone's at the door.
Yeah, I know. I hope also that at some point during Planet of the Apps that we get someone who says, "Take your hands off me, you damn dirty app."
I didn't see that one coming.
Now, similarly, oh yeah, go ahead.
Last question. Do you think that the 10 million in funding is better, or the exposure, including the exposure on the App Store, which is the most beneficial?
I can answer this question from being married to someone who watches American Idol and The Voice and all of that. The exposure is the big thing. Winning is great, right? I'm not going to say that's bad, but just the exposure is worth it for people to participate in this.
Makes sense.
If they get enough exposure, of course, which is an if with this. Facebook announced an app for Apple TV, Fire TV, and Samsung Smart TVs launching soon. The app will recommend videos to watch and videos to watch later. In other words, it'll recommend you videos and allow you to save videos to watch. Facebook account will be required to use the app. Facebook also announced autoplay videos in the news feed will play with the sound on. Boo. A picture-in-picture feature will let users watch video while continuing to scroll through the news feed, and vertical video viewing is rolling out to all Android and iOS apps.
This is pretty big. I mean, Facebook has been working towards having being a strong player in the video space for a while, but I think this puts them in real direct competition with many other players, and well, quite frankly, with YouTube. I feel like this is making Facebook's video offering legitimate, because today, if you want to have a real video offering, you have to be able to actually get people to watch it on TV. Yes, you can watch stuff in your web browser, or maybe even in your app when you're scrolling through your feed. But I really think that if you want to have a full competition in the video space, then it's TV and its dedicated app. And I think the dedicated app is going to be following relatively shortly.
Yeah, I think so too. It's another situation where it's hard to tell if Facebook will actually be delivering content that people want to go through the trouble of downloading this for. This is not Facebook on Apple TV. It's Facebook Video on Apple TV.
Well, I can tell you that they have an exclusive deal with Blizzard to broadcast Heroes of the Dorm, which is a competition for one of their games. And I'm going to download it just for that. So there you go.
All right, let's finish up with, I think, probably one of the most important announcements of the day.
Yeah, pretty interesting. At the RSA conference Tuesday, Microsoft President Brad Smith proposed a Geneva Convention for cyber war. Smith called on Russia and the US to agree to ban the nation-state hacking of all civilian aspects of our economic and political infrastructures. He said an independent organization consisting of tech experts could work along the lines of the International Atomic Energy Agency. He also called on tech companies to become a digital Switzerland and pledged not to aid governments in offensive activity, and the adoption of a coordinated disclosure process for software and hardware vulnerabilities.
Yeah, so this is very, very interesting, and it's worth reading the full post from Brad Smith about this if you didn't happen to hear it. He goes into a very thorough explanation of how companies run the internet. And when cyber war is carried out on the internet, it happens on infrastructure owned by private companies. It happens to private companies. Private companies are the first responders, as he calls them, to fix these things when an attack begins. And there is no current consideration taken for innocents that get affected by these. And he's saying, you know, as Patrick just mentioned, that basically tech companies who are multinational consider themselves Switzerland and not get involved in escalating, but as he explains in his post, being defense, not offense, and commit to that. And then he calls for an organization that would bring government and tech experts together as sort of an International Atomic Energy Commission type organization to say, we need to set down a Geneva Convention. We need to set down the rules of cyber war.
I think this is incredibly clever, incredibly important, and ultimately doomed to fail. I don't see the only way that this would work would be if there was enough pressure on governments to go that route. And I don't see any government basically abandoning their own cyber warfare capabilities in order to prevent the others from having one. And we're not there yet. I think the pressure is not high enough. You don't, I mean, the response to the Snowden leaks, think of him what you will, but the reality is that we discovered the extent to which governments were involved in mass surveillance, and the response to that wasn't, all right, maybe we need to scale it back. Maybe the response was, well, everyone's doing it, we're going to do it as well, we're going to keep doing it, and we're going to make it legal so we can keep doing it. So I don't see how this would be approached differently. And so it's with sadness that I say would be important, because he's right. There are many. I mean, the digital Switzerland thing, I think, is a little bit self-serving. But aside from that,
he's not complimenting himself and saying we are. He's saying we should be. And I think that's him just trying to come up with an easy way for people to understand what he's suggesting, which is we're the folks who should stay neutral. Yes, it's going to be tempting for companies to pick a side. We shouldn't. We should be defending our users against attacks and not encouraging offense. And Microsoft has done things to that extent in fighting the order to turn over information from abroad, in working, and he goes at length to talk about working with the government in order to provide defense for people who are trying to grab domain names to do phishing attacks that include Microsoft, and using legal tools as well. So I don't know that he's trying to arrogate anything to himself. I think what he's trying to do is come up with easy ways for people to understand what he's calling for.
I think in this case, it is the digital Switzerland thing is probably the moral thing to do, but I think the reason I'm saying it's self-serving is that I think it's the more commercially advantageous thing to do for a company. Obviously, you want to make sure that your customers are well served, but it just happens to be the moral thing to do, in my opinion. But yeah, anyway, that's not even the main aspect of it. The main aspect is that it would be important to have an independent international agency that sets basic rules for this kind of warfare. And that is basically what the Geneva Convention does. It is obviously a little bit more important in the case of actual direct physical harm, or the way you treat enemy soldiers and all of what the Geneva Convention does. But it's basically the Wild West right now, and that doesn't help in cyber war. It's not healthy for
and
anyone.
They're talking about this in the chat room too. There's a difference between what he's calling for regarding state actors and trying to get malicious actors to stop behaving. You certainly aren't going to get people who are just out there on the dark web doing spam and phishing attacks to get banking information to play by the Geneva Convention, any more than you get partisans or terrorist organizations to play by the Geneva Convention. That's not what he's asking for. What he's saying is states who are willing to abide by international law already and participate in things like the Geneva Convention should all agree to participate in similar rules for cyber warfare.
I want to talk about one thing really quickly from the chat room also. Undermined is saying, please don't get the UN involved. I think it's really easy to only see the bad aspects of all of those international organizations. But what he's calling for in this case is for people to get together and talk things out. I'm sort of familiar in my podcast enterprises with just at least hearing people and discussing things with people. And in this case, again, the situation we have today is no one is talking to anyone. Everyone's just going off on their corner and doing stuff to each other. So getting together and discussing this and discussing what is okay to do and what is not okay to do, even if it doesn't get the best result possible every single time as fast as it could, is still better than not having people discuss anything, which was what we had before, that led to many unfortunate events in the history of the world.
Well, yeah, and you don't even have to bring up the UN to talk about this. The Geneva Convention, and I think that's why the president of Microsoft, Brad Smith, brought up the Geneva Convention, is no one thinks that was a bad idea. Or if you do, you've got a pretty rare opinion. Most people think that the Geneva Convention was a pretty good agreement made in 1949 and post-World War II. And he's saying we have a new way of attacking things that can have effects on civilians that are otherwise uninvolved, and we should all, as states and private companies that manage this stuff, get together and figure it out. And I like that he refers to private companies as the first responders, because what he's saying is, look, when you're in war, it's the military that is the first responder in any situation. In cyber warfare, it's not. It's Microsoft, Google, Amazon, your local ISP, or you that are the first responder. It's not the attacking states.
Yeah, and I think that comparison to the Geneva Convention is very apt, also in the fact that, as you said, and as we know, it was put together with the pressure of the horrors of World War II. I guess we're bookending the top stories with that. And I think in order for something like that to happen, you need that kind of pressure. And for cyber warfare, we don't have it. So.
Well, if you want to get all the tech headlines each day in less than 10 minutes, subscribe to dailytechheadlines.com. Let's move on to talking about Nintendo announcing 2 packs of downloadable content for the upcoming Nintendo Switch. What do they call them?
So it's actually one expansion pass.
It's the expansion pass that gives you 2 different drops. One is in summer, gives you the Cave of Trials challenge, a new hard mode, and new features for the in-game map. And then in the holiday time period, you'll get a new dungeon and a new original story. And as soon as you order, which you can start doing on March 3rd, you'll get 3 new treasure chests in the Great Plateau area of the game. And one of those will contain a Nintendo Switch shirt that Link can wear. It'll cost you 20 euros. It'll cost me $20. And it will cost Nate Langston 18 pounds.
I thought it was 17. Huh.
I think it was 17.
Getting a special price.
Yeah.
Right. So this is an interesting one because obviously the DLC downloadable content are commonplace now in gaming. It's not entirely new for Nintendo to do this. It's somewhat new for a Zelda game. And I think the way people think of Zelda is one inclusive, one entire experience. So the idea that you're going to have to pay a little bit more to get the full thing, I think is reminiscent of a sentiment that has been pretty common for gamers in the past few years, which is, what's up with all of those DLC? What's happening with those pieces of the game that you're selling us after the fact?
Well, yeah, and that is the big question. Is the company taking part of the game that they would normally sell to you and holding it back and charging you for it, that's awful. You just sell me the game. Don't try to nickel and dime me. Don't cripple the game by holding back parts of it. Or is the company saying, hey, we have this game, and if we can make a little money on downloadable content, we can do even more with the game. And the way to make that happen is to say, here's the game, and then we'll see if we can sell you some downloadable content down the road to help improve the experience. So you're not just buying a game and then that's it. You're getting more of it. It all depends on the content, right?
I think as with every new form of business, there is experimentation happening. I think the experimentation phase is a little bit behind us now. There has been some consumer revolt in the cases where it was clear that part of the game was just cut off and added afterwards for pay. But it has happened, and when it does happen, it's fair to denounce it. I think the main thing we're seeing now is that the I can't remember who it was exactly, but someone really smart once described the issue with the business model for World of Warcraft, a subscription-based MMORPG. Full disclaimer: I used to work for Blizzard Entertainment, which develops and edits the game, but they were comparing it to free-to-play games, and the way they described it was, World of Warcraft asks of their players a certain amount every month, but once you've paid the subscription, there's no way for players to give the company more money if they want to, which is another way of saying the company can't get any more money than they get for the subscription. And of course, in the case of World of Warcraft, there are additional services that can now, even more than before, be purchased. So you can give them more if you want to. But this is a trend in games in general, which is allow gamers who really enjoy your product to give you more money if they so wish. And of course, free-to-play games, which are only that, make that extremely possible. It's basically the way they work. They allow people to give you infinite amounts of money if they want to do that. But it is very understandable as the life cycle of each game expands. You're going to have hopefully mutually beneficial relationship where the developer is going to get a little bit more money from people who enjoy the game. Maybe it's even going to subsidize the full game a little bit, because it will allow for that huge production to be sold at a not lower price, but the same price as it has been for a long time. So in the best conditions, it is a mutually beneficial deal. And games are sort of tending to become almost the gaming equivalent of a software as a service, which is something we're seeing a lot in the tech sector as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of a halfway step to that, right? Office 365 is probably the software as a service that most consumers would be most familiar with. And that's where you pay a regular fee and you get access to always the most updated version of Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think this is not as successful as that, because what it's saying is, we're going to give you part of something and then you pay more and you get another part of it. If they did a service subscription that said, hey, subscribe to Legend of Zelda, you can either buy it like you can Office, or you subscribe to it, you'll always have the most recent Legend of Zelda stuff. It would play a little differently. It wouldn't feel like they were holding something back. It would feel like you are supporting an ongoing effort. And it makes me wonder why I would pay for the Nintendo Switch subscription service if this kind of thing isn't part of that.
Yeah, I think it's so the comparison sort of breaks down at that point, because the subscription-based games exist very little now, but basically it's MMORPGs. The justification for those subscriptions were the fact that you needed servers and the game was constantly being updated. So that was a little bit easier to understand. But at the same time, in today's landscape of gaming, it's really difficult to justify having to pay for every single month for one game. At the same time, many of the games aren't singular experiences anymore. When you're saying, you give me part of the game and then I have to pay again for another part, that is the worst case scenario. Hopefully, you get the full game, and then if you really like it, it's sort of, as you were saying, a half step between the software as a service and just having that game. Because let's say you get a game, you love it, you play it, for a month, you do it from beginning to end, every little nook and cranny. If you want more of it, then thankfully now you can, but in most cases, but before you couldn't. It was just, that was the game and that was it.
So really, here's the thing. This is the way I look at it. If I don't like this, then I won't buy the game. Or if I buy the game and I don't think that it's worth it to buy the extra game because that's too much money, then I won't buy the downloadable content. No one's forcing you to do that. And if companies price these things too high or provide too little as downloadable content, then you won't buy them and they won't charge you for those anymore.
And that is exactly, it's basically the power of capitalism, right?
I wouldn't put it that crassly, but I suppose as a European, you're going to have to.
It is. That's exactly what it is. But that's what happened in the past few years. Sometimes companies were doing a little bit of giving you a bad deal, and they were getting bad press and bad buzz, and this didn't work out really great for them. I think it's also important to mention that in the same way as the fact that software as a service is possible now thanks to the infrastructure and basically thanks to the internet, it also feels like a normal evolution of these pieces of entertainment, since we can do those things. One of the reasons why we didn't see those before was that it just wasn't possible. If you had to put out more content, you would need to actually put a game in a disc, and it was a much bigger deal. It's the same thing as, people complain about day one patches today. A lot of people say, back in the day, you had a game and you would buy it and it would be bug-free.
I don't get the day one patches when I'm downloading the game. Like, why didn't I get the patched version in the download? But I digress.
Yeah, but it was, and the reality is those games are so much more complex today. And also you can keep developing and fixing bugs until the end of the development cycle. The development cycle never ends. For many of these games, they're being developed throughout their life cycle, which can extend to a few years very often. So anyway, I think the bottom line is that when it works well, it's positive, right? You're happy to have all of those.
Yeah, it should be. That's the way it should work. Hey, thanks to everybody who participates in our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. A couple quick thoughts from folks out there. First of all, Craig from Louisiana saying, hey, I can tell you why we need a 5G logo and a 5G standard. It's the same reason you have UL listed here in the United States on lamps, because you don't want to have to think about whether that's the right gauge wire and the voltage impedance is correct. And in fact, the company that stocks that lamp doesn't want to think about it. The Underwriters Lab does that for you. And he's like, 5G, while maybe not a speed rating with this generation, will be a mark of a certain level of compliance. The general public may not realize that for a bit, but as always, those informed will be informed as they usually are. So he's like, it is important for some people to have that. And then Chris asks, how much do people really care about sweat on these VR headsets? We've been getting so many people writing in with ways to prevent sweat and gunk from building up as you share a VR headset in places like gyms and arcades. Chris says, I've rented a decent amount of ski equipment. I sweat a lot. Give it back to the shop. They spray some crap on the equipment, the helmet and the boots, and put it up. And they don't have any problem renting it back out.
Well, I wouldn't want to rent the piece of equipment that Chris sweat in, apparently, because he sweats a lot. I'd rather, you know what? I want my tech equipment sweat free. Is that too much to ask? I have a friend who sweats a lot. We used to play the Super Nintendo on, in our room when we were kids. When he would pass over the controller, we wouldn't be happy. We would wipe it with a tissue or something. I understand the issue.
Chris speaks for the other side of the argument. That's all I'm saying. So. Good for him. Thank you, Patrick Beja. FrenchSpin.com, the place to go to find all the stuff that Patrick is up to. Anything in particular to let folks know about this time?
Oh, I guess both shows at that site. Pixels is about gaming and gaming news in general, and the Phileas Club is about international news and discussions with people from different countries and different perspectives, and people seem to like it. So go check it out at FrenchSpin.com.
If you, my friend, think it's valuable to have a team of folks spending hundreds of hours a week combing through all the tech news stories and telling you the things they think are most pertinent and interesting, you can support that and get some perks. If you support the show at $5 a month, that's merely 25 cents an episode. You will get an exclusive weekly newsletter written by me. This week, I'm going to go through and give Gartner a little bit of a report card and say, how good are they at forecasting things. That's going to be arriving in the patrons' email box on Thursday. At the $10 level, you get a weekly roundtable show. We just had one with Nate Langston and Ian Morris from Text Message. And at the $20 level, you get into an exclusive Slack of other supporters of the show like you. You can support us at any level you want at patreon.com/DTNS. And we thank everybody who does. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern at alphageekradio.com and diamondclub.tv. And our website is dailytechnewsshow.com. Back tomorrow with Scott Johnson, who does not like sweat on VR headsets. Talk to you tomorrow.
Bye.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Oh, crap. I cut you off because I didn't expect you
Oh,
to do that.
that's so sad.
Let's see. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Ah, perfect. Right, Shibbit.
I have the title.
Oh, what is it?
The Princess is in another DLC.
We'll see. Ha!
I think that's the best one, right?
Eh?
Good. Yeah.
We'll go with that one.
Want
That
to read
one.
a few others out just to...
Sure. Take your hands off me, you damn dirty app.
I like that one.
This is the one I actually originally wanted. PewDiePie. I might be a little mean, but don't submit headlines when you're slightly buzzed.
It's
the one that
a
you
very
guys just
good
said.
piece of advice, Strike It Rich.
Yeah, Dubai gives flying cars a whirl.
Get it?
Whirl.
Whirl.
You must be this light to ride. Basically, it's a big bulge. Will I app?
That's true. You did say that.
I did.
Let the games begin.
Will I app? I just got that one.
What flies in Dubai stays in Dubai. Yeah, the range is pretty short. I don't think it'll be.
Yeah, they probably will. No, it's literally true.
Let's see. Sweaty people issues. Clever and doomed. Zelda's breath of DLCs. Best of worst worlds. PewDiePie. I don't know. That's just funny. I think that's just funny. PewDiePie.
It is, but we
Yeah, I
usually
know.
have to get the main topic, right?
No, not always. But the princess is in another DLC is good. You know what's interesting in that promo video for the E-Hang in Dubai? It's pretty cramped. That guy must be like 6'1", 6'2", and you see him get into it, and it looks painful. Like your knees are up there by your chest, kind of painful.
What?
Oh no, the promo video for in that website for a news story for the E-Hang for the Dubai drone
right.
service. The guy gets in it. He's like 6'1", 6'2", and he looks super cramped. Like his knees are like uncomfortably close to his chest. I don't know. You might as well. They might. You know what? They might as well just build a zip line in Dubai that connects you from one point to other parts of the city.
Well, sure, they could do that too.
Doesn't have
to be one or the other.
Well, I mean, it's true. It doesn't have to be, but with all those zip lines, it could provide obstacles for a safe drone flight.
True. So, do we have a title?
The princess is in another DLC. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it's winning. He's
What if
mean.
they actually put the princess in the DLC? They're like, yeah, she's.
Well, in that case, they will have a lot of angry gamers at
I
their
know.
doors.
Angry Gamers? Isn't that a website?
Probably.
Hold me closer, angry gamer.
Tony Danza. It's Tony Danza.
I'm sorry. My mistake.
I'm gonna go.
Okay.
Oh, fine. You and your different time zone that make it really late for you.
Yeah.
I will do my best to flatten the Earth before our next. I'm not here next week, by the way. You remember?
Yes, we have. We replaced you with someone.
Oh, we can never replace Patrick. What are you talking about?
We substituted you. Patrick.
Okay. I hope my substitute is like Fakin to Bacon.
Who do we have next week?
Rich.
Oh, Rich from lovely Cleveland, Rich Straffolino.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Well, I
Do you
hope
feel
he-
bad now about casting aspersions upon her fill-in? Hey, wait a minute.
All
Did you
right.
always have that couch behind your desk?
No, it needs to be moved, but it hasn't been yet. It's not. Yeah. All right.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Patrick. Have a good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Also, Princesses and another DLC would be a Super Mario thing, wouldn't it?
You know, I don't follow Zelda at all.
It's fine.
I played the first one and I was like, hey.
I loved Ocarina of Time. It was.
I never had a Nintendo 64. So.
I didn't either. My roommate did, so I had to.
I liked
mooch.
Wind Waker. I did not like the sailing in Wind Waker.
Really?
I didn't. I was like, I get it. You need to travel, but really, it was just really dull just to sail. Like, it would be cool if that was just a few seconds to get you from one place to another, but it was just like I was bored. But I like the part where you actually do stuff in Wind Waker. Is pretty fun. Just traveling all over the part. Zelda, Rubinstein, Bueller. I think the only, I guess Zelda is a Japanese RPG, but the only one I've ever finished was Dragon Quest on the DS. And that's just because I had a lot of time to kill.
I finished Ocarina of Time.
Would you want a medal? Want a trophy?
do.
Actually, I remember. This is how janky
Oh,
are
big
my
Crystal
day
Heart.
camp. Day camp. It was like a camp, but it was just during the day, like summer school. You just go there in the morning. You come let out at 4. They made awards out of these little. Was it Carl's Jr. or Wendy's? They used to have those kind of gold foil ashtrays. Remember?
Oh yeah. Well, we didn't have Carl's Jr., but I remember those ashtrays. I think
Yeah.
multiple places
Yeah.
had those.
Well,
Yeah.
they took that and then they put like a little thing circle and put ribbons on it, and that was our
That was
award.
your award.
I was like, really? That's kind of,
Did they steal them or did they buy them?
I'm sure. Maybe they bought them. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or maybe they just ate at Wendy's.
Store.
And I'm gonna buy. I'm
Striker
gonna
Rich
buy
says it was Wendy's that had
a
those.
Wendy's. It's like maybe they went like, I'm gonna have a baked potato, a frost or whatever that weird chocolate freeze thing, and like a stack of these ashtrays. Bad French accent, and that wasn't a bad accent in Monty Python. That was a hilarious accent.
I don't know that Rich will be doing a bad French accent. I will though. I'll do it
Yes.
instead.
There's does Cleveland have a? Do Clevelandese
I don't know
have
that
accents?
Cleveland has. I mean, Cleveland definitely has some slang that is native. I don't know if it has a particular accent of its own, other than that northeastern
Ohio.
Midwestern crossover.
I've only been to Ohio once,
We'll
and
have
I
to
was
ask
at the
Rich.
airport.
Or we could ask Len on Friday, actually.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he doesn't really have an accent.
No,
So,
Len doesn't have an accent.
I can't tell.
I don't feel like Rich does either.
Tom
All
is
right.
good.
We're almost published. Thanks, everybody, for watching.
Oh wait, did I get the paste bin? Paste. Ah, there it is. Nope.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.